Hi, how you doing? So, last December 2022, I had the bright idea of making an advent calendar, one new video every day for 25 days. As you can imagine, that was my worst idea ever, considering I added stress to an already busy time of year, and loaded up my channel with a lot of nonsense. Meanwhile, this past year, I did not have time to do as much as I would have liked to with my channel, so I figured before we swap calendars, let's get one more video out. Also, I figured I'd take some of those videos that were actually pretty decent last year and repackage them to give them a second lease on life. So that's what we're here for today. Repackaging those 5 videos out of the 25 I think are worth a second look. Please to enjoy. For as long as there has been television, there's been plenty of network-branded season greetings interstitials.
Holiday greetings from the whole crew here at KOMO.
Typically they're simple and quick, though it's great when they dedicate time to a bunch of random network employees waving at the camera. But as amusing as some of these network break greetings are, none will measure up to a couple that CBS aired way back in 1966. The first one finds a group of birds blissfully chirping in a tree when they happen to spot a man with a saw approaching. The other one focuses on a poor boy telling a department store Santa his unusual Christmas wish. The spots are a minute and 30 seconds respectively, but they manage to tell feel-good stories in that short amount of time. They're heartwarming, beautifully soundtracked, and instantly memorable. The artwork for these 2 shorts were drawn by renowned illustrator R.O. Blechman, with animation assistance by Willis Pyle. Blechman gained recognition with his first book, The Juggler of Our Lady, in 1952, which was a retelling of a medieval tale with a bit of a Christmas twist. He would eventually find himself doing illustrations for print publications and advertising. In 1967, Blechman would storyboard and illustrate this acclaimed Alka Seltzer commercial.
Like heartburn? Well, you're gonna get it every time you eat a pepperoni pizza. And that's a promise.
Gentle.
And the way he stuffed himself at his mother's.
You've always hated my mother.
Are you gonna start that business all over again?
In 1978, Blechman founded an animation studio called the Ink Tank. They collaborated with the Children's Television Workshop's stable of programs and created identity pieces for several broadcast and cable networks. In 1984, he directed The Soldier's Tale for PBS, which won an Emmy for Outstanding Individual Achievement for animated programming. He was the subject of a Museum of Modern Art retrospective in 2003, an exhibit at the Norman Rockwell Museum in June of 2013, and another retrospective at the School of Visual Arts in October of 2013. Not to mention the recipient of the National Cartoonists Society Lifetime Achievement Award in 2010. With Blechman's unique vision bringing these warm sentiments to life, it's easy to understand why they were so enduring. And even the most cynical among us can't help but get a little goosebumpy when watching these. It would be quite fitting that these Blechman spots premiered in the middle of what can be considered the golden age of Christmas programming. You had Rudolph in 1964, Frosty in 1969, and Santa Claus is Coming to Town in 1970. And in the middle of that time frame was CBS and their successful offerings, including Charlie Brown in 1965 and The Grinch in 1966. And alongside it, these 2 Blechman animations. CBS did try to replicate the heart and soul of these originals with updated spots in later years. You had Carl Fisher's contribution in 1982, and then these series of computer-animated interstitials that premiered a few years back. But while charming in their own right, it still falls short of the magic of birds caroling and Child's Wish. There are links in the description to the full videos. I recommend checking them out if you are not already familiar for some quick holiday cheer. And while you're at it, check out R.O. Blechman's website, also linked. But otherwise, I will see you tomorrow. The burning of the Yule log is a tradition that originated in Scandinavia as a way of celebrating the winter solstice. The practice spread across Europe and typically involved burning an entire tree over several days. In the 4th century, Pope Julius I declared the celebration of Christmas to coincide with the winter solstice, inheriting the Yule log traditions in the process. By the mid-20th centuries, the prevalence of modern indoor heating made burning a log less a necessity. Fireplaces became less common, especially in large cities like New York. So in 1966, Fred Thrower, then general manager of New York's WPIX TV, decided to modernize this tradition with none of the fire hazards. As a gift to viewers, the network would air an uninterrupted close-up shot of the lit-up Gracie Mansion fireplace. The 17-second loop would air for 3 hours on Christmas Eve, commercial-free. Accompanying the broadcast was a selection of traditional Christmas carols, which was also simulcast on radio station 102 WPIX FM for better sound. The broadcasting stunt proved successful. The WPIX Yule log would become a yearly tradition. There were a few changes along the way. In 1970, with the original 16mm film print quickly deteriorating, the production team had to film new footage. During production of the original Gracie Mansion fireplace, a protective grate was removed, causing a stray spark to damage a nearby antique rug. As a result, the crew was denied permission to return. A look-alike fireplace in a private California residence had to be used. The new footage, shot on 35mm stock, was a vast improvement. The loop now lasts just shy of 7 minutes, eliminating the jerkiness and artificiality of the original 17-second loop. Starting in 1974, then General Manager Richard N. Hughes would deliver a special holiday greeting message prior to the broadcast. Popularity of the annual Yule log peaked in 1978 when the network started airing it twice, once on Christmas Eve and again Christmas morning. Changes in WPIX management, in addition to the expense of airing a 3-hour program with no commercials, would eventually prove detrimental to the special. 1988 would be the last time the Yule log aired on Christmas Eve. In 1989, there would only be a Christmas Day broadcast, and that would be its last.
Channel 11 is pleased to have been able to bring to you this special holiday tradition for the 24th straight year.
For several years, the only remnants of the 23-year tradition was an internet version WPIX offered in 1997, which you could imagine at the time would have been lacking in frames and resolution. The website Bring Back the Log, created by Lawrence Chip Arcuri and Joe Malzone in 2000, began receiving plenty of attention from equally wistful viewers.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
We're coming to you from the Water Club this morning to invite you to join us for the return of a WB11 holiday tradition.
That's right. Thanks to our friends at Macy's, American Express, and the MTA, we now present, without commercial interruption, the original WB11 Yule log.
In late 2001, WPIX announced that they would bring back the Yule log after an 11-year absence. The long overdue return was met with better than expected ratings. And with that success, the yearly WPIX Yule log tradition was reborn.
Hi, Ray Romano here to welcome you back to a family tradition on Christmas morning, the Yule log on WB11. That's right, the Yule log is back.
In 2009, Lawrence Chip Arcuri, now maintaining the website since renamed theyulelog.com, was tapped to hand-select music for a newly added 4th hour of the Yule log.
We have all new music for you. It was picked out by the ultimate Yule log fan, Chip Arcuri. Chip, who created the Yulelog.com.
In 2016, a 16mm print of the original Gracie Manor footage had been discovered. The newly restored 1966 Yule log aired on December 24th as part of its 50th anniversary celebration. This would be the first Christmas Eve airing in 28 years. In addition, a 5th hour was added to the familiar 1970 version, with Arcuri once again providing the meticulously chosen playlist. The Yule log could be seen nationally on Antenna TV, as well as stations owned by Nexstar or cable providers that carry Superstation WPIX. And sure, there are tons of virtual fireplaces floating around, including silly alternatives, but in my book, nothing beats the original. By the way, do check out the Yulelog.com, link in the description if you need it. You'll find a website design that's a throwback to a more primitive time, including demands for a Flash plugin I no longer have, but you'll also find lots of information, including a complete playlist of all 5 hours of the Yule log, history, message boards, broadcast information, print media, and more. I'll see you tomorrow. I was going through my Christmas records and I remembered I bought this a couple of years ago. I only paid $5, still sealed. Looks like this was originally from Tower Records, with the asking price of $15. And yes, I bought this entirely for the long box. Remember those? Long boxes were the bane of environmentalists, but their purpose was twofold. First, they helped make them harder to shoplift, But more importantly, they allowed these new, smaller compact discs to be displayed in the same 12-inch tall LP fixtures. I distinctly remember 3 different types of long boxes in record stores in the first decade of compact disc sales. You have the ones that are specially made for the CD being sold, which made up the bulk of them. Then you'll see some generic long boxes that had an opening for the disc, but not very much else. Sometimes company specific, but largely interchangeable. And then there were these plastic pieces that stored the case spread open with the booklet rotated for display on shelves. Obviously, plenty of artists hated the excess waste. Some used the space creatively, but for the most part, it was unnecessary trash. Though there were people like me who used these long boxes as decor. I distinctly remember the long box covers for Nirvana's Nevermind, They Might Be Giants' Flood, Guns N' Roses' Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, and XTC's Nonsuch adorning the inside of my high school locker. Of course, had I known people would be ponying up decent money for some of these old long boxes, even empty, I would have done a better job of saving them. By 1993, as it became evident CDs would be the dominant format, long boxes largely fell by the wayside. Stores that still needed the security of 12-inch displays would use those plastic frames cashiers could remove at the register. But still, part of me misses the proprietary artwork of these long boxes. They're pointless, but they were still kind of fun from a packaging perspective. I think that's why I bought this. I don't really collect NKOTB stuff. Well, except for this, these, this, and also the vinyl version of this album, which I'll show later this week. But it's hard to resist having a little piece of compact disc history, even if it's just for a boy band's Christmas album. See you tomorrow. In the days before information and entertainment was as close as our family computer sitting in the middle of the living room, we had to depend on telephones. 1-900 numbers, or 976 prefixes, had been in use since the early 80s in limited capacities. Besides offering information, the technology also allowed a modicum of television interactivity.
The video vote phones will remain open for 20 minutes.
Saturday Night Live famously used the 900 number setup in a Season 7 episode to let viewers vote on the fate of a lobster they named Larry. In those days, the charge was relatively nominal, typically 50 cents, all of which was kept by the phone carrier. By 1987, AT&T developed a new program that allowed people to start their own phone business using a provided 900 number and their own audio content.
Call me! Are you calling me? 1-900-999-9500.
These copper cable entrepreneurs were able to set a price of up to $2 for the initial minute, with additional charges for each subsequent minute. Before long, there were 1-900 hotlines for anything and everything.
They said Luke Perry's my perfect match.
Adult content? Obviously.
Street girls, all real, all true.
The streets is tough, but so am I.
Celebrities? Natch.
If you call me right now, I'll give you my private number.
You call that number, and you'll hear a recording, and I'll give you my personal number if you call that.
And beyond that, there was no idea too far out, too stupid, or too banal that it couldn't be turned into a telephone gold mine.
Imagine listening to a talking dog. This is no joke. This is the real thing. Call now.
Of course, the nation's network of 900 numbers had more Santa Clauses on payroll than R.H. Macy.
Ho ho! Santa here. Call 1-900-660-6666, and I'll tell you a different Christmas story every day. The big ones go in the red boxes, and the little ones go in the green boxes. Got that?
Yes, Santa. Christmas is near, and I am delighted that so many good boys and girls are calling my special number.
Call Santa at 1-900-909-2345, and he'll tell you a different Christmas story every day. Plus, he'll tell you how to get these Christmas whuppies free with the cost of your call.
Call 1-900-909-1122. Plus, I'll tell you how you can write me and get a letter back from me, along with these holiday friends. Your parents have to pay for these calls, so get their permission first. Then, when you call me, I'll tell you how to get a whoopee from my Christmas collection.
There's a new story every day, and you'll receive a free gift from Santa and me for calling.
Kiddies who enjoyed having a rap session with the jolly man himself, regardless of their parents' four-figure phone bill, would be disappointed when FTC regulations in 1993 started putting a halt to the more devious practices of unscrupulous 900 number proprietors. Of course, the final nail in 900 numbers' coffin was this little thing called the World Wide Web.
You're going surfing on the internet.
That can offer news, information, and entertainment for the cost of your internet service provider. But not to worry, If you still find yourself itching to get jolly old Saint Nick on the horn, you'll be happy to know you can still do that.
1, 6, 0, 5, 3, 1, 3, 4, 0, 0, 0.
Merry Christmas! This is Santa Claus, and you have reached my personal hotline. And remember, kids, I know who's been naughty and nice. Merry Christmas, and I'll see you soon!
It's Christmas Eve, the day Santa makes his trip around the world. And since he'll be up to his rosy red cheeks and toys, I think that makes a fine segue into this brief look at some of the most popular items on children's wish lists in years past. In 1958, Alvin of Ross Bagdasarian's Chipmunks famously whined about how he wanted a hula hoop.
I want a hula hoop.
It seemed like a lame thing to modern ears, but indeed, when the Wham-O Toy Company released their plastic version of these toy fitness rings in summer of that year, they immediately flew off shelves, selling an estimated 80 to 100 million by the end of that year. Wham-O didn't have a patent on the product, only a trademark on the name, so the market was oversaturated with competitors. However, Wham-O improved the product in 1965 by adding ball bearings to the inside of the tube, giving it that familiar swoosh sound that we remember today. In 1977, George Lucas unleashed a little space opera called Star Wars to an appreciative audience.
Golly!
In what has become a legendary tale of wait-and-see improvisation, toy manufacturer Kenner decided to hold off on making any action figures in case the movie did poorly. The movie, in fact, did not do poorly, to say the least. And with a sudden demand for action figures and no time to make them for that year's holiday season, Kenner came up with an ingenious plan. They sold an empty box.
These action figures are not yet available, but this Star Wars Early Bird Certificate package is in stores.
For $7.99, parents could get their kids an IOU kit that came with a mail-in certificate and would later double as a display for the new figures. The plan worked. Kids had something Star Wars under the tree, and Kenner had a successful holiday season without having to rush a product to the market. In 1978, art student Xavier Roberts, after perfecting the German technique of needle molding, began offering his line of handcrafted little people up for adoption. A licensing agent took notice and in 1981 suggested he change the name, as Fisher-Price already owned the Little People trademark. The dolls, now renamed Cabbage Patch Kids, were shopped around to many toy companies before Coleco expressed interest. Coleco redesigned the dolls with plastic heads and packaged them in fancy boxes complete with birth certificates. And when they hit store shelves in time for the holiday season of 1983, it seemed that everyone wanted one.
When the doors opened at this Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania store, the pushing and shoving began. One woman was knocked to the floor and suffered a broken leg.
Demand far outweighed supply. Riots broke out in stores across the country as desperate parents fought to get that precocious doll under the tree. The toy that was retailing for $21 was consistently selling for $40 and $50, oftentimes more on the second-hand market.
Cabbage Patch Kids are each sold separately. Each doll comes with a pretend birth certificate and adoption papers from Coleco.
While the frenzy for Cabbage Patch Kids never reached the insane peak it hit in 1983, the toy remained fairly popular throughout the 80s, even surviving Coleco's eventual bankruptcy as it seamlessly switched hands to Hasbro. Meanwhile, that dark period in holiday retail history served as the inspiration for an Arnold Schwarzenegger holiday movie 13 years later.
Alright, so there you go. If you want to watch all 25 videos from last year's Advent calendar, there is a link in the description. Most of them are not great, but what the heck? Maybe they're better than I think. But in the meantime, I want you to have a Merry Christmas, a great holiday season, and a wonderful New Year. Hopefully I can see you more next year. Enjoy. Bye-bye.